talk about narcolepsy. I was diagnosed with narcolepsy about 4 years ago or so, give or take. And it actually came as a shocker to me at first because I didn't feel that I had any sleeping issues prior to the diagnosis. But then it wasn't a surprise because at the moment in that time I was having issues with sleep and I was falling asleep everywhere. At this time I was living in Florida and I was falling asleep while on the phone. I wasn't falling asleep. I shouldn't even say that. I fell asleep. I would be on the phone with somebody. Yo, what up, date? Nah. I went to work and then doctor's appointments. But are you going to be in town anytime soon? No, I just wish I just wish I knew exactly what time you were going to be here so that I can plan accordingly. That is how I was handling my narcolepsy. I was falling asleep. There was no... I fell asleep. There was no falling asleep. Now, yes, there were moments where I was trying to stay awake. I fell asleep at the wheel many times. That was one of the scariest moments and it was not, while I was driving, I was falling asleep. But when I went to the light or a stop sign, I was instantly knocked out cold, meaning I fell asleep. Now, yes, you could wake me up, but I fell asleep. I would just drive, get to a stop sign or anything that made me stop, and I would just go. Now, yes, I don't snore, but just so you guys know that means that I was knocked out cold. Anyway, let's fast forward. Now it is 4 years or so later, and I've tried many medications. One which slightly worked, and I was just diagnosed with narcolepsy. Now, narcolepsy, first let me mention, is basically excessive daytime sleepiness. So you could fall asleep at any given time, even when you're not actually tired. And it was excessive. And with that, I was just falling asleep on a regular. So when I was in Florida, I was taking a drug called Nuvigil. There's another version called Provigil. I think one is like the brand name and one is the generic name. And it worked decently. I was still very, very, very tired. So instead of falling asleep everywhere, I was just tired. And that didn't really help me. There was an issue. But when I moved to Minnesota, my insurance no longer covered it, which is probably a good thing because I really needed something different. Now, once I moved to Minnesota, the only drug that could work for me was Adderall, which is typically used for children with ADHD or ADD, or even adults. And at first it didn't do much, so they upped it from 10 to 20, and then 20 was phenomenal. I also have a heart condition, several of them, and when you take that kind of medication, your heart rises. So it didn't really work, but I was on it for probably about 2 years or so. And I had issues with it where I could not sleep. And so I slept all day, and then in the evenings I stayed awake, but the medication is supposed to keep you awake during the day, so at night you're ready to go to sleep. But because of how strong it was in the evenings, I stayed awake. So it would be 12 hours of daytime and then another maybe 6 hours of an evening time where I was wide awake. I was able to clean my whole... I could have painted my whole house on the outside and the interior rooms and still have been wide awake. I was just recently, a few months ago, was taken off of that drug. Now, let's reverse. There is a symptom called cataplexy. It seems like it's a diagnosis, which I guess technically it is, but it's also a symptom of narcolepsy. Cataplexy basically means that you are having temporary paralysis. So you can Typically it's when you are having a strong emotion, fear, happiness, anger. So if you are recording and someone comes through the door and goes boo and you get shocked, your body will freeze and you'll fall. Now, when you are in the paralysis, you can hear and see everything, but you cannot move. And it could last seconds and up to minutes. I know and have read that 20-30 minutes, it can go that long. I started receiving that symptom of cataplexy, very minor, and still is very minor, and it would happen in my feet and my hand/wrist. A lot of the time was when I was driving, and I assumed it was something else. When I would see my doctor for a kind of like a checkup, just to make sure that my medication's going well, he would ask me my symptoms, and I explain that I'm having no symptoms. I have symptoms, but I don't think they pertain to you. I think they pertain to X, Y, and Z. And he goes, you're having symptoms of cataplexy. Now, I've heard of cataplexy, but I thought it was extreme. Your whole body, not different limbs. So with that, we thought that the best option, him and his partner thought the best option was a drug called Xyrem, Xyrem. And I said, okay, what is it? So he told me to kind of do some research on it since he knows I'm about research, and I did. And it terrified me. I went probably about 6 months or more without taking that drug. And I was actually off of any drug. I wasn't taking the Adderall or anything for that matter. Now, this drug is a controlled substance. Very illegal. To receive this drug is not like any other. You have to get it mailed to you. You have to have someone 18 over to sign for it. You have to do not an interview, but like a meeting over the phone with two different individuals, a pharmacist and somebody else, so that you understand this drug. And when you receive this drug, at first you receive a lot of information because of this controlled substance. What is in this drug that makes it a controlled substance is something called GHB. I'm not even going to tell you what it stands for because I've been trying to sound it out for you guys, and I mumble it out and stutter it out way too many times. But GHB, looked it up. It's like gamma something acid something, I don't know. And many of you guys probably understand what the word or the letters GHB stands for and have heard of it. It's in a lot of TV shows and movies, especially the like police type of shows. GHB is the top drug that is used to give to women to rape them. It is AKA also known as the date rape drug. And you heard that correct. Date rape drug, which is the GHB. Typically it's in a powder form, and the men would put it into the woman's drink. And what it does is that it is like a psychoactive drug. It's kind of like a hallucinant as well. So take it in a large dose, what happens is your body is barely there. Like, you can't feel yourself. You can't stand. You can't talk. You can't be active. You can't figure out where you live. And if you give it a large dose, that happens, which means that if you're willing to be a horrible person, you can go to this woman and bring them home, and they would not have any idea what is happening. They won't remember that evening, and it puts them to sleep, and it knocks them out so that you can do the worst of the worst. And when they wake up, they have no idea what happened with them that evening. And so it is a scary drug, and it makes sense why they use it for narcolepsy and cataplexy, because it puts you to sleep fairly instantly. There are some studies and some videos on YouTube of people taking it and recording it for the first time, and they are out in under 10 seconds. 10 seconds. At first, my dose, I didn't feel it at all. I was up to 4 o'clock in the morning still. Eventually got the dose down, and I am now able to fall asleep Still, it takes about 45 minutes, so I don't know if it's just a low dose or my body just doesn't handle it well. They use this drug also because of the symptoms of cataplexy. It really helps you have a really deep sleep, which will help with the symptoms of cataplexy. So this is what the bottle looks like when you receive this container. Depending on how much you receive in the evening, you'll get multiple of these. I received 2, and some of them are not full. I get one that's full and one that's about 3/4 full. I have it flipped around so that I can keep my information private. So, it comes with a container that's dark so that the sun does not ruin the medication. You also will receive a container that looks like a pill bottle that's completely empty that says Xyrem, and a syringe with grams that are numbered up here. Depending on how much you take, I take, well, I won't mention how much I take, which I guess doesn't really matter, but we'll keep that private for now. But I do take 2 doses. Now, typically you always will take 2 doses. Every now and then you'll find a doctor will only prescribe 1 dose for you. I take a dose at sleep, and you have to typically go to sleep at the same time, whether it be at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 1 o'clock. You want to take it at the same time, and you want to take it about 2.5 hours to 3 hours after you have fallen asleep. It will not keep you to sleep. It will only put you to sleep, which is why you do the second dose. So around 2:30, 3 o'clock, I have an alarm to set to wake me up, and I re-add my dose and drink it. So what I do is I take this, I find the dose that I actually am supposed to take, put it in, and lift it. And then I squirt it into here, and then you fill this up with water. Not completely. I believe it's actually 60 milligrams of water. I've been doing this for so long, I don't actually have to measure it anymore. It's about here. So almost full. You just drink it, and it tastes like salt water. And then you go to sleep, and you wake up again 2.5 hours later and do another dose. That is a little rough, and I'm not gonna lie, I do miss that quite often, especially when I'm having a deep sleep, which is, I guess, fine because I am sleeping and that's what I want. So that is what the drug is. So if any of you guys are going to be taking Xyrem, or it's kind of in a discussion with you and your doctor, I definitely want you to do the research. It seems like a scary drug, but it works really well. I haven't had one symptom of cataplexy since I've started this. I haven't had any narcolepsy side effects whatsoever from the medication, and I haven't had any symptoms of narcolepsy. This drug has no side effects, at least for me, and I haven't read any side effects from anybody else. Since I have started this drug, you would have never known that I had narcolepsy, which is funny because narcolepsy was probably one of the worst conditions I had when being diagnosed with this and other conditions. It was one of the top ones that was affecting my life more than everything else or anything else. And I was really nervous that it would never get under control. And now it's one of the conditions that I barely bring up because I forget that I have it, because I don't have any narcolepsy that pops up like ever. When I get tired, you can definitely feel a difference from regular tired and narcolepsy tired. And it's really hard to explain what the difference is, but it's very different. It's, you know what tired feels like, but this is like weights on your eyelids, on this thin skin, pulling you down. It's unbearable. And I just wanted to let you guys know that I do have narcolepsy, and I have tons of paperwork to prove that I had a very, really bad case of it, and it was one of the worst conditions that I had to live with. And it was treated very well, and I'm enjoying my treatment. To get diagnosed with narcolepsy, if you feel like you have narcolepsy, you do a sleep study at a sleep center. And at the time, things had just changed. And I guess years ago, you do a sleep study. They put tons of wires all over you. Your hair gets gluey stuff everywhere. And you sleep at the clinic for a night and then all into the next day. Depending where you are, it might be a little bit different, and depending at what time you do it, whether it be, 2019 or 2009, I'm not exactly sure, but this was my experience. I had to go in at 9 p.m. and they have a camera in the room. There's a TV, so you do everything normal, brush your teeth, but they want you to shower and everything before you get there. And you go to sleep when you would normally go to sleep. If you're wide awake for too long, they'll ask you to go to sleep, and they have an intercom in there asking if you're okay and please go to sleep, etc. And they will test you. They want to check on if you have, breathing issues, if you snore, if you talk, etc. The next day, you'll do 5 naps, and I believe they were like 20, 30-minute naps. Don't take my word for that. And years ago, if you had one nap that put you into REM sleep at a certain amount of time, whatever it would have been, you have narcolepsy. Now you have to have 3 interrupted naps out of the 5, and not interrupted like you woke up or you're dreaming. It has to be a certain thing that the system shows. And I believe I had 3 or 4 out of the 5, and I actually had a few really scary symptoms, including imagining the patient in the other room raping me. And I woke up screaming, and I heard him coming in from the other room and her explaining what was going to happen. And I took a pencil and I stabbed him somewhere in my dream. And I did wake up screaming for that one. But I don't remember if I had the cataplexy then. And then one of my other naps out of the 3 that were 3 or 4 that showed that I had narcolepsy. I don't know if I was dreaming, but I woke up and I couldn't move. And holy mackerel, that just reminded me. I did have only one narcolepsy or cataplexy symptom. I was dating my ex Jesse, and I remember I woke up, but I couldn't move, and I tried to get Jesse to wake up by like hitting him, but my arms were completely still, and I was in panic, and it was about 20 minutes, and by the time I was able to move, I screamed. And that's what it was. And he goes, what happened? I told him that I couldn't move. And he goes, maybe it was a dream. I can see everything in the room, and I couldn't move. So it did happen once, but that was so many years ago, and then I'm forgetting about it. And I did tell them, but I also forgot about it at that time. So I know I'm kind of going all over the place because I'm just remembering things here and there. But long story short, I have narcolepsy with cataplexy, and it's not something that I would ever want anybody to have, but I am thankful that I am being treated very well. Anyway, that is it. I hope you guys all enjoyed, and I will see you next time. Bye.